Hey everyone, this is Ben Eubanks, host of We're Only Human. I hope that you are having a great day and I'm excited you're here with us. So today you're going to hear a conversation I recorded recently for a live stream our team ran around frontline workers. What are they thinking about? What are they prioritizing? What are their challenges? And how can we help them as employers? One of the sponsors on our event was Fountain. And what Fountain does is, honestly, they help some of the biggest companies out there to hire and keep their frontline workers. They've done some incredible work there with UPS, with Aimbridge Hospitality, as you'll hear today in the conversation. And so today's discussion will be with Conrad Riddle. He's over at Aimbridge Hospitality, one of the largest hospitality groups in the U.S. that you've probably never even heard of. And Conrad talks about some of the opportunities and challenges that exist around supporting those workers. Really great session. It was a hit in the live stream, and I know you're going to enjoy it here. Let's jump into the conversation with Conrad.
Don't conduct your analysis in isolation because data is so incredibly powerful.
Not defending just the tribe, but defending the organization.
Those creative people that you really want to keep empowered, keep excited, keep motivated, keep thinking.
A good experience pays dividends down the line.
Stereotypes tend to break down in proximity.
Welcome to We're Only Human, a podcast about human resources, business, technology, and the workplace. My name is Ben Eubanks, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. Hey everyone, we're so glad you're here with us at the live stream today. And I love chatting with our different guests and taking notes on their strategies, their approaches, what they're learning, all those sorts of things. And so I'm really excited to be here because Conrad and I are going to have some conversation around what you can be thinking about when it comes to serving the candidates who are in your pipeline, on getting them through there faster, on creating better experiences once they're in the door, all those sorts of things. So welcome. Glad to have you.
Thanks, Ben. Happy to be here.
It's going to be a fun conversation. Before we get to some of the good stuff, we're going to talk about all the nuts and bolts and all those things. Take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please.
Yeah, I lead the HR, technology, and shared services team for Aimbridge Hospitality. We're the largest third-party operator of hotels in the United States. Something I didn't know before I got into the industry was that when you stay at those Hiltons, Hyatts, Marriotts, they're more often than not run by those companies. They're really in a brand franchising game these days. And there are behind-the-scenes operators like Aimbridge, which we're, again, the largest in the U.S., actually operating those hotels. So we're in 48 states. We're also international. We're about 800 locations, 40,000 employees. And again, I'm leading the HR technology, frontline experience, shared services group for that company.
Which I'm sure is completely calm and sedate, and there's not anything that happens at a fast pace around there. All right, so I'm excited to talk about this piece of it because as you and I were chatting a little bit ago before we started here, one of the things that I said to you and you were like, oh yeah, right on, was that for many of your frontline workers, those people out there making a bed, serving someone at a front desk, fixing maintenance, all those sorts of different roles that are in the organization there, those people never are going to come in and say, hey, Conrad, I'm going to see you face to face. It's all digital. It's all virtual. They may see a manager, but otherwise it's pretty remote. So for those people, the way you can reach them and connect is the HR technology piece. If that's correct, talk about that a little bit and what that feels like on the receiving end as an employee in that context.
Yeah, I think there are two major levels of experience. You mentioned them. One is the manager. The manager owns the part they've always owned. Like we're not a replacement for management. Good managers matter. But the foundation that manager stands on is everything that my team delivers and that we try and deliver at scale across 800 different locations in the US. So whether that's applying on the front end and how easy and seamless, friction-free that application experience is, all the way through your performance reviews each year, and even how you leave the organization, and are you receiving COBRA information on time and all of that. We try and tie that all together, make sure that we're implementing different, whether it's different vendors or different workflows on our end, so that the employee feels a continuous voice throughout that entire life cycle of the employee, and they know where to go for self-service. I think self-service through technology is really what more and more employees want. For a long time, we were saying, you got to push self-service, train people on this. An employee wants to know what their schedule is on their phone. They don't want to have to go in, take a picture of that piece of paper that's on the wall, and then they come in for that shift a day later, and the piece of paper changed, and no one let them know what it was. Like, we have technology, let's use it. You get a push notification when your schedule's ready. You get a push notification when your schedule changes. And that is really, on a day-to-day basis, scheduling is the most important thing. For all the energy we put into all these other touch points in the life cycle, scheduling is every week, every day they work. That's the one that's just a constant tempo.
Yes. You see that in the data and some of the research, like they talk about, yes, schedule when I work, that matters the most. But you also see it affecting other things too. Like when we say, what's a barrier to you as a frontline worker to being able to develop the skills that you need? I just don't have time in my schedule to fit in more training or to fit in that skills development or even time with a mentor or something else. They don't have time to do those things, or it's hard to just slot it in amongst everything else, the moving parts. So that all powerful schedule runs their life. And as you said, they don't want to have to depend on someone else to keep them in the loop there. They'll do it on their own time, on their own power, we'll say, for that purpose there. So let's rewind it a bit. I dove right into the scheduling piece because I get excited about some of those pieces of it and making it easy for them. The data say that matters deeply, and retention and everything else. But let's go back a little bit, rewind to the candidate piece. So what do you think is one of the biggest headaches or frustrations for a candidate who's trying to get a frontline role?
Yeah, so put yourself in the candidate's shoes. They're looking for a job, right? Whether they have one today or not. They're putting in applications everywhere, and then you might not hear for weeks, often months. The best of systems might auto dispossess you and you'll hear something within a day or two. But I've applied for positions. I know what this is like, where you get that rejection email like 6 months later, and you're like, I forgot I even applied to that job. Like, you would have been better off not sending me anything. Yep. At this point, I forgot. But what we wanted to do, and we got there with Fountain, one of our newer vendors, was make it so that someone could apply. By the way, an important non-friction point is that they don't have to log in. These application systems that require you to have an email and create a login might make perfect sense if you're applying to IBM or you're applying to Google or some white collar position. But when we talk about frontline workers, they're on their mobile phones and they don't want to do all this account accessing where you have to go back through an MFA and log into your email back and forth. You're losing half of your applications when you have an experience like that. So be able to come in, easily complete an application that is mobile friendly, and then based upon whatever pre-screening questions we're asking, if we determine you're qualified, immediately move you into an interview scheduling experience. So before you've completed that experience of the initial application, you're potentially leaving with an interview for some time in the next week. That feels like, okay, there's a whole different experience than the getting a rejection email 6 months later. I want to show up to this interview. This is an employer that wants me there because they're immediately extending their hand to me versus saying, thanks for the application. Don't call us, we'll call you.
It feels to me like even continuing that as one session versus, hey, we'll get back to you about scheduling. Some of those you'll lose too in that handoff. So being able to keep them right there in that flow and continue moving them down that path to, by the time you finish, it's, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing Conrad next week versus hopefully someone sees what I see in me and they're going to give me a call back.
Definitely. I think for Frontline, even though the volume's high and the velocity's high, it's still a scarcity game. So you got to be fast. And if you're not fast, someone else is grabbing that person before you can get there. I've seen managers over here think of hiring as more of a farming experience. I'm going to throw my seeds out. I'm going to open my position, throw my seeds in the ground. I'm going to water that for 30 days. And then I'm going to come back and try and find some sprouts. That's not hiring in 2025. You got to be moving into interviews fast and hiring fast, or, they've been hired by someone else, or circumstances have changed, or frankly, what we think we're competing with for a lot of our frontline workforce is they're delivering packages for Amazon or they're driving for Uber. And those platforms are saying, thanks for your application, show up here tomorrow to work. That's what we need to be competing with. We need to be at that speed.
It's hard to do that, right? Because you want there to feel like there's this reciprocal sort of, hey, we see you, we see what you're bringing, we respect that, we want to have a conversation. We don't want to give up the interview piece because there's a connection and a component there that matters. We want to make sure they're going to show up in your case and take care of your guests and make sure it's a great experience. But you are competing against those other sorts of pieces as well. Yes, the data on why candidates drop out after they've applied for a job, so that frustrates all of you out there. Yes, they applied 2 weeks ago. Today, I can't get them to respond to the phone. The biggest reasons for that are it took too long to get a response. The process took too long. Maybe you're asking them to do too many. Hey, here's an assessment. Here's 2 more interviews. Like, no, this is just hourly role. Get them in there, darn it. And the thing that I tell hiring managers, you alluded to this a second ago, those hiring managers that are farming, that gets me because you're not just losing any candidates, you're losing the best ones. The ones that are in most demand are the ones that are going to have no tolerance to put up with this sort of game you're playing with. You're going to, sure, you may get someone through and they're the one no one else wanted. That's the candidate.
Yep. You got the leftovers 30 days later.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So we've talked about the experience there. We've talked about bringing them in along that journey, bringing them into the organization. Let's go back to the scheduling piece, because one of the things that you told told me was so powerful. You said that this employee self-service piece for managers when it comes to the schedule, sometimes there's this thing where managers want to be the center of that, whether it's they feel the need for control, they feel like it gives them a position of power. I don't know what it is, or it's just, I want to know what's going on. It's okay. I can respect that. But you were telling me that slows things down. You become a bottleneck. Talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, happy to. So here's the scenario I have in my head, because I saw this happen. This unlocked it for me. I saw this happen. We were having, I think it was Easter. We were having Easter brunch, family's over, everyone's there, and we're talking about something we wanted to do 2 weeks from then. And my sister-in-law works for a national pharmacy chain without dropping a name. Okay. And we said, let's do something on Saturday. And she pulled out her phone. She logged into her app. She looked at her schedule and she said, I can't do Saturday, but I can do Sunday. That was the unlocking moment for me. I'm like, okay, we need to integrate into the employee's life experience at that level. They need to be able to see their schedule on demand. They need to be able to transact against that schedule on demand. So if I want to trade my shift with Ben because it needs to be Saturday and Ben has a Sunday shift that I can trade him for, we can do that through self-service. It can still go to the manager for approval, and then they get to say yes or no. When they say yes, it updates all the scheduling platforms for them. So I think we've, through technology, done a lot of things to make that easier, give more control back to the employee without creating a burden on the manager. I do think that's still, we're having to move the managers along. Some of it, in addition to everything you said about maybe being the control point, even though I think we're giving that to them, a lot of it, especially in hospitality, is, well, that's not how I came up. That wasn't my experience when I was in your shoes. I had to grovel at my manager and beg and plead to do some of these things.
Please, Conrad.
A little bit of an exaggeration.
Yes.
It's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not quite. So we're preaching the message of to managers. This is going to save you time. You ultimately need your shifts covered, and we're your ally in making sure that happens. But with technology, there's a way to give people flexibility while still delivering to you a staff schedule. We're not saying anarchy in scheduling. I know there are organizations that say employees pick their own hours, and we're not there, but there's a middle ground here.
Yes, there's a middle ground where people actually have a say. People have a little bit of flexibility and freedom there with each other. I think that's one of the things that gets me is in a world, any role in the frontline world, and I probably will say this multiple times on the live stream for all of you out there listening in, just put up with me, sorry. But in that world, we can't let them have some of the freedoms that someone else could. They're not going to be making someone's bed while sitting on their own couch, right? They're going to be there physically there on site. So the other kinds of flexibility you can offer, there's a degree of novelty and excitement around that. You're talking about this thing that seems to us to be, well, obviously you would do that. And yet, as you said, whether it's a mindset thing, it's a lack of technology thing. Some people are using antiquated technologies that don't let them do that. Or they've got that sheet they put up on the bulletin board in the office. That's the only way that people in the loop on their schedules. And you're missing a chance to give them a degree of flexibility. And for those companies, it becomes a differentiator. It becomes a reason for people to want to work there and continue there. I don't just say that off the top of my head. The data showed that even when you have some schedule tools like you're talking about here, the flexibility there, that doesn't mean that weird stuff doesn't come up. Right? You're trying to figure out on Easter when we can have something together. Stuff comes up. People are sick. Kids are sick, whatever else. But what we saw is those people that have those tools available are much less likely to say that it's a pain to try to reschedule. It's a pain to try to get this stuff sorted out. It's like, oh, okay, done. One more thing to take care of. So that's the thing I want all of you to hear out there is this doesn't mean that no problems will come. It just means when they do come, people will be able to handle them themselves or bubble something up on the occasion where they can't, instead of every time having to say, teacher, I need help. Can I go to the restroom? Whatever else, like they're in first grade, starting all over again.
The other thing we haven't said is a lot of the frontline, again, in the data, I can't cite the statistic, but they're working multiple jobs. So flexibility is the lubricant that lets that work. If you are too rigid in a frontline context, you're going to be the job that they have to drop because they want to keep the other job, or they need two flexible jobs to be able to be flexible against each other. So yes, we might schedule them on Wednesday and that's not their typical schedule. And instead of that being an emergency or a last second no call, no show, we put tools in the employee's hands to say, I can't work that Wednesday shift, but Ben can take it and I'll do a trade with him. And we'll work that out between the two of us. That it's kind of liquidity and lubricating of all those different interactions.
To me, it sounds like both on the candidate scheduling piece, but in this piece here, it's a little bit more about, to me, it sounds like empowerment of these people that for a long time are in many of the ways you have no power as a frontline worker. You're kind of like there. I was at a theme park yesterday with a family, I'll call it out. And the poor 16-year-old kid who was doing the register, the lady in front of me was just chewing him out. over something silly with the price that wasn't ringing up. Like her pizza wasn't right. And so she's just getting all over him. And I'm like, they have absolutely no freedom in their work. They have no respect in many cases. And giving them this little bit of empowerment can make that shift, can make the job more fulfilling overall to them. So I wanted to ask you something that's, again, a little bit off the wall. So I hope you're ready.
Yeah.
You were an HR generalist before, so you can handle it all. So you're quick on your feet. What is something that you and your team have accomplished in the last year or so that you're just proud of? Whether it's serving your people or something else you've accomplished, you've stood at this technology. It doesn't matter to me what it is, but I'm kind of curious. I want the audience to hear someone who's doing this every day. Like there's some good things happening.
Yeah. So in just the last 6 months, we've partnered with Fountain to replace our ATS and onboarding experience. And while it's giving all of the automation and flexibility and time to fill that we've been alluding to along the way, we also know through the automation of different onboarding tasks that a manager would have in a previous platform had to initialize or push, or honestly in the front line, a lot of it is just kind of herding cats through the process, right? Hey, you need to complete this one more form. That's up next. Please make sure you sign it today so that we can start you in 3 days like we're planning. All of that nudging has been automated. And when we measure that, we've given back 40 to 50,000 hours to our frontline managers just in the last few months. That's a huge investment back into the business. And in a time when, managers are being asked to do more than ever, in addition to giving all this flexibility and better frontline applicant experience, the ability to turn to our managers and say, yes, I'm bringing change to you. And I totally understand that nobody likes change at first, but I promise in 6 months, the amount of efficiencies that are here, it's going to be incomprehensible that you could have ever worked without it going forward.
Yes. You're going to be grateful at the end of this, right? Any change is tough, but you're going to be grateful at the end. We haven't talked about onboarding really as part of this. And again, high volume hiring comes with high volume onboarding. Typically we're getting you in, you got to be productive as quickly as possible. Anything that you want to touch on that front as far as, hey, this is a key thing to think about or something that's we've done that we're excited about. You talked about taking something off their plate there. I think that's a good thing to call out, but anything else you want to touch on from an onboarding perspective?
Yeah, what we used to struggle with was we had national packages that would give all the federal forms that you need to give, and even down to the state forms that you needed to give. It was clunky and it was slow, and the manager had to do all of the poking. So what we have now is something that can actually read the requisition. And for those of you that are in the industry, you'll understand how novel of a concept this is. Every ATS platform I ever had, you had to build unique combinations, packets that were assigned in different contexts. And the permutations of the different combinations of all the different forms, it's like when you go to Baskin Robbins and they're like, we have 31 flavors, which means there's thousands of possibilities. Well, it's that, but it's not ice cream, right? We only have 50 total forms we might ever ask someone to sign, but the unique combinations of them all means I have thousands of packets. We've automated all of that and gotten away from the packet concept, where now we say a housekeeper in San Diego is the requisition, and there's housekeeping forms that come in based upon it being housekeeping, and there's San Diego forms that come in based upon it being San Diego. And all I have to do is manage a housekeeper form and a San Diego form, and then it's just pulling itself off the shelf every time it's applicable. That's been a huge leap forward in the onboarding space. And it's rare that you do these things and compliance thinks you made a positive change. But compliance is in love with me right now because I know I have 100% onboarding compliance, and we did not have that before.
Conrad's going to get flowers from the compliance team. Thank you. Thank you for keeping us above board. We appreciate that. Okay, man, this has been fun. Again, thank you to the Fountain team for putting us together. And as you can hear, that Conrad and the whole team over there are getting some good value out of that conversation. So for all of you listening in, again, give Fountain a shout out for their good work here. If someone wants to connect with you, Conrad, and just chat with you about industry stuff, here they learned something new from you today or whatever else, you okay if they reach out on LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the place to find me, Conrad Riddle. And if there's not many of us, but the one at Aimbridge Hospitality, that's me.
That's the one. Okay, excellent. Wonderful. Well, thank you again for joining me today, for sharing some of your insights. I always appreciate a deep dive into the world of hospitality. It's all to see it on the consumer side. It's fun to go behind the scenes and see what's happening back there. So thank you for helping all those people be ready to meet us and greet us with a smile and everything else behind the scenes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
To everybody else out there, stay tuned for more good stuff coming right up. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I'm honored to have you as a listener. If you enjoyed this episode, please take 10 seconds to rate it at iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, if you know a friend that could benefit from today's conversation, please pass it their way. After all, a rising tide lifts all ships. To see show notes, sponsor information, and our full show archives, visit onlyhumanshow.com.